Did another Earth ship once probe out of the galaxy as we intend to do? What happened to it out there? Is this some warning they've left behind? And then the opening scene of the episode is Kirk and Spock playing a game of 3D chess in the rec room and making small talk that is alluding to the theme of logic versus emotion and intuition. Which is kind of cool to think about as the opening scene for Star Trek's new pilot episode, because it kind of sets the pace for Star Trek as a whole by having this opening scene be a discussion about human nature. The topic in particular being, should we value emotion and intuition, or should we reject those in favor of logic and reason? And one of the chess players says yes, the other chess player says no. I think having this as the opening scene, says something about the intended trajectory for the show. Rather than setting the pace with some kind of opening action sequence, for example, the writers instead show their trajectory, by setting the pace with a discussion about human nature. And I think that's because the goal of the episode, as well as the vision that is intended to set for the series as a whole, is part of the original Star Trek concept of something that's designed for thoughtful discussion that causes reflection, and particularly reflection on the nature of the human condition. And while this scene can be thought of as setting the tone for the Star Trek concept as a whole, it's also the introduction of a particular sub-theme that spreads throughout a number of these early episodes, which I particularly noticed in the last two episodes that I discussed, The Man Trap and Charlie X. All three of these episodes, those two and this one, take time for some really focused dialogue between our characters on this competition between logic and emotion, and the difficult task we have of trying to balance those values. Throughout this episode, this theme is going to expand itself into the backdrop of a moral dilemma that can be seen through that lens of certain emotions pressing up against certain points of logic. So in this scene, at the beginning here, the writers are kind of introducing that emotion versus logic question, not only to introduce us to the series and to these characters, but also to introduce that theme that's going to play out through this episode. And then in particular, like I said, they're going to keep returning to that theme in future episodes as well. Also, another fun observation, there's this lighthearted ribbing as Kirk beats Spock at chess by means of his intuition, and Spock finds that frustrating because it's illogical, and yet Kirk won. So that exact same interaction was duplicated in the episode Charlie X. The difference being in that episode, it kind of fit into the structure of the episode a little more naturally. Here, it seems to be more of an initial character exposition device. The point of having Kirk beat Spock by means of his intuition, and then Spock be annoyed by that, is kind of a way of establishing who and what these characters are when we've never seen them before at this point. Who they are psychologically and symbolically in this opening of the new pilot episode for this new series called Star Trek. And this is also our first real introduction to Spock. So in terms of first ever moments for seeing Spock, we actually have a number of contenders for that, because he was present in the cage, but he wasn't actually the same kind of logic-only kind of Spock that we know and love now. He was just the science officer who was an alien. And then in The Man Trap, we had the opening scene that would have introduced the original television viewers to Spock. That was the scene where Uhura was hitting on Spock on the bridge, which really highlighted Spock's emotionless Vulcan personality and values. But in a way, we could say that this chess scene here was really the true introduction to Spock, because this was originally supposed to be the new pilot episode to replace the cage. And in this opening scene,